Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I thought tonight I would do a continuation of my video where I roasted David Chrisman because there's just too many stories left untold. And I got some pictures here to show you. This is David, what he looked like during the time that I'm going to be talking about. He's a very young man. I'm going to try holding it from this side because it seemed like it was focused on my fingers more than the picture. And this was a time in David's life where he was very much like Indiana Jones. I told him the other day, I said, if I could take Evel Knievel, Indiana Jones, and Billy Graham and mash them all together, I might come close to getting a David Chrisman. And we have family up in Ohio that used to come down a lot. And he used to hang out with Dickie Dale's son, Michael. And this is a picture of Michael McGahey, one of the McGahey tribe that David hung with. And anyway, David was all the time climbing hills and climbing mountains, and Michael would go with him, and they'd go up on East Pinnacle, and they'd swing from these grapevines, and they'd climb the Kirby Knob, Pilot Knob. There you go. They'd climb Pilot Knob and get up there on top of that rock, and they'd have to climb up this rope to get up to the top of Pilot Knob, and they'd get off the beaten path and go up these sinkholes and in these caves and look at Indian artifacts, and they'd see pictographs on the side of them caves, and there was caves up there on that farm that Grandpa owned that Granny said was haunted by them Indians, and they'd go to the front of them caves and look in and could see pictographs, and they did all kinds of fun things like that. And there was no telling what they could get into when they'd get off them beaten paths. And there were some places where David would climb, and it was made out of slate, and he'd pull some of that slate out and use it to put his feet and his hands to climb them slate walls. And he'd go down there to the creeks, and he'd take these traps and catch snakes. And when I was a kid, I used to raise chickens. And I found a snake in there with the chickens one time, and I took it home to show Mom. And I didn't have a candle to hold to David because he'd set out traps, and he'd catch 10 or 12 and scare Hazel and Granny about to death, and they'd tell him, oh, you got to take them snakes back and turn them loose, David. And he was wild. I mean, wild. And he told me all sorts of stuff like that he did. Well, this one time Dickie Dale and all of them came down because Tommy Alexander, my uncle, he was getting married to Christine. And this is what David looks like when Tommy and Christine got married. And he was 8 years older than Missy, and I think Missy was about 5, so that would put him about 13. And here's Missy and Ellen at Tom Jr.'s wedding when he married Christine. And Dickie Dell and all of them came down. And after Tom's wedding, they asked Jimmy and Hazel if they could bring David back up to Ohio with them so he could spend some time with Michael and Dickie Dale. And before I go any further, I want to do a shout out to Alfred Hitchcock, because Alfred Hitchcock had a formula for thriller movies, horror movies. And that's where you show the audience the bomb under the table, but you don't show the characters in the story the bomb under the table. You just show the audience. And then you pan away. And then that's supposed to create suspense in the movie that you're watching. Well, the reason I want to do a shout out to that is because when I say the name David Chrisman, that's the bomb under the table, okay? So just remember that as we go forward, okay? So they agreed to let David go up there to spend the week with Dickie Dale and Michael. And Dickie Dale had a big welding shop up there in Ohio. And here's a picture of Dickie Dale and my grandmother, Flora Clemens Alexander. And David went up there. And in the morning, they went to the welding shop. And they hadn't been there too long. And Dickie Dale got a call to go to some factory to do a welding job at a factory. And he left David and Michael there at the welding shop by themselves. Well, he hadn't been gone long, and David was looking around that welding shop, and Dickie Dale had a metal table in the welding shop, and he had a metal hammer that he used to beat steel and flatten it out or curve it out, whatever he needed to do a job so he'd have something to weld over a crack or whatever. And David wanted to use his imagination, and he wanted to pretend that he was Thor, and he welded that hammer to that metal table. And he said, I'm Thor, and nobody can move this hammer but me. And he kept on looking around, and he seen in the corner of the welding shop there was a push mower there, and this push mower belonged to Phyllis. That's Dickie Dale's sister. And Phyllis had this big yard, and she had a riding lawnmower, but she had a heel out front that she had to push mow, because you couldn't get a riding lawnmower over that, because if you slid off this bank, you'd go out into the road, because it was beside the road. And he got the idea that he wanted to be Lawrence of Arabia. And Dickie Dale had these two big Dobermans that guarded that welding shop, and this welding shop had a big fence that went around it. And these two Dobermans ran out in the yard, and David got the idea that he was going to take that lawnmower, and it was all tore apart because Dickie Dale had been working on it, and he tied it to them Dobermans, and he got one of them floor crawlers that you use to get underneath a truck or something to work on it, and he tied it behind that lawnmower, and Michael got on that floor crawler, and David got on that push mower, and he got them dogs to pull him around that yard. And about that time, while he was playing Lawrence of Arabia, Dickie Dale came down the road from that job, and all this, he seen what David and Michael were doing, and they were going around and around his welding shop, playing Lawrence of Arabia, and them Dobermans was pulling him, and he was on that lawnmower and that crawler, and they were kicking up dust, and this dust went across the road and went right in Dickie Dale's truck, because apparently it timed it just right. Now let me tell you something about Dickie Dale and why this is funny, is because on the dash of Dickie Dale's truck, he had a frog that was holding a sign, and that sign said, "Don't smoke, I might choke." So he really didn't like dust or smoke or anything like that. So and man, David and Michael, they were really kicking up the dust going around this. And he pulled in there, he said, "What in the world are you doing?" And they said, "Oh, we're just playing Lawrence of Arabia." And he just shook his head and went in there. And he said, "I'm not back to stay. I just came back to get my hammer because I needed it to do a job." And he went in there, and he had found out that hammer was welded to that table. And he said, "What in the world have you done to my hammer?" He said, and David said, "Well, Dickie, I was just playing that I was Thor and that nobody could move that hammer but me." And he said, "Well, if you're Thor, you better move that hammer." So David, he got this big long pipe that he could use for leverage, and he put it on the end of that hammer and pushed on it, and he broke that hammer free to where Dickie Dale could use it. And he just shook his head and went on. And Dickie Dale had this big key. And if you ever watched the TV show Andy Griffith, his key looked just like that, and the only thing it went to was that front gate to that welding shop. Well, at the end of the day, he noticed his key wasn't where it was supposed to be, and he said, "Boys, where's my key at? I got to get my key so I can open up in the morning." And David said, "Oh, well, it's out in the yard. I buried it a while ago because I wanted to pretend that key was the key to Pandora's box." And he said, "Well, you need to go get that key because I need it." And he got his little map out, and he went over there where it was supposed to be, and one of them Dobermans had dug that key up and had it in its mouth. And Dickie Dale and Michael and David had to chase that dog around trying to get that key. And every time he'd drop that key, he had two Dobermans. And the other Doberman would pick it up and he'd be fresh. And Dickie Dale and Michael and Dickie would all be about wore out. And it took him forever to get that key. He said, man. And he went back to the house and called Jimmy and Hazel and told them all the things that David had done that day. And Hazel said, well, put David on the phone. And so David got the phone, and Hazel told him, said, David, the rest of the time you're up there in Ohio, you're not allowed to use your imagination, okay? That's just what he did in one day. And he was up there all week. So I'll just leave it to you to imagine what went on the rest of the week. And this is Dickie Dale's mom and dad, Flora, Alexander, and Wilbur McGahey. And Flora was our grandfather's sister. And man, she was a real good prayer warrior. And that week that David stayed up there, I bet she did a lot of praying for Dickie. So that just goes to show you that when you ask for something, you've got to be able to receive it. Sometimes you get more than you bargain for. But he was always wild and the first one to have fun. And I just really enjoy David, and he's such a good sport, and he's fun to talk about. This story about David, it has a great moral to it, and that is when you are raising your children, we all have different crosses to bear, and raising a child isn't easy. And you've seen 3 examples there of how David's imagination got the better of him and got him in trouble. Even the best kids in the world get in trouble and have problems and issues. And I've had lots and lots of problems dealing with Nicholas and his severe ADHD and his oppositional defiance disorder. And I love him so much. And whatever you're going through today, other parents are going through similar things. And just because it looks good on the outside, once you break those perfect families open that appear perfect, they've got their problems too, and things they have to deal with. And with David, I had to make stuff up that he got into to have a story, but I can just imagine him and Michael doing that because they were really fun people. And David, he there's no telling what he'll come up with. I'll tell you what, you can only imagine what kind of a Christmas play. If he was the director of a Christmas play, it'd be wild. uh, Not to give anybody any ideas out there. But I'm going to get off here, and I hope you have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed my video. And it was all in good fun. And I'll talk to y'all later. And if I think of any more interesting stories about David, I'll make this into a trilogy. But that's all I've got for now. I'll talk to you later. Bye.